The psychology of a child who grew up too fast. There's a specific kind of compliment that is uniquely dangerous when given to a child. A phrase disguised as praise that often masks a quiet, invisible tragedy. You are so mature for your age. It sounds like a glowing acknowledgement of intelligence, a badge of honor awarded by the adult world. But if you look closely at the child receiving it, you will rarely see genuine pride. Instead, you might see a profound, weary stillness. Were you that child? The one who always seemed to know exactly what to do, the one the adults unconsciously leaned heavily upon, while your peers were allowed the messy, careless luxury of simply being kids. To understand the psychology of the child who grew up too fast, we must first dismantle the illusion that childhood maturity is always a natural developmental milestone. In many cases, it is not a sign of accelerated cognitive growth, but rather a highly sophisticated survival mechanism, a rapid and desperate adaptation to an environment that could not or would not provide the stable scaffolding of safety that a developing brain requires. When a child realizes, either through acute trauma or chronic emotional neglect, that the adults in their lives are compromised, absent, or emotionally volatile, their psychological imperative immediately shifts from joyful exploration to environmental stabilization. This phenomenon, widely documented in developmental psychology and family systems theory, is known as parentification. Coined by structural family therapist Salvador Minuchin, parentification occurs when the natural roles between child and caregiver are fundamentally reversed. The child is drafted into a role of heavy responsibility that their psyche is not yet equipped to handle, effectively ending their childhood long before the chronological clock runs out. We can observe this psychological adaptation taking two primary forms within the family dynamic, each leaving a distinct neurological and emotional fingerprint on the adult they will eventually become. First, there is the phenomenon of instrumental parentification, which happens when the child becomes the functional, practical manager of the household. Imagine a 10-year-old who instinctively knows how to balance a checkbook, who makes sure the younger siblings are dressed and fed, or who navigates the complex logistics of adult responsibilities because the actual adults are incapacitated by illness, addiction, or overwhelming poverty. This child's prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for executive functioning, planning, and problem solving, is forced into overdrive long before it has fully matured. They learn very early that their value, and indeed their physical safety, are inextricably tied to their utility and output. They become hyper-vigilant project managers of their own lives, tragically confusing productivity with peace. However, while their executive functioning is highly developed, their emotional regulation often lags far behind, simply because there was never any space or permission for them to process their own feelings when the survival of the entire family system rested on their tiny, unequipped shoulders. The second, and often more insidious form, is emotional parentification. In this dynamic, the child does not necessarily manage the physical household. Instead, they manage the precarious psychological well-being of their parents. Picture the 9-year-old sitting quietly on the edge of a bed, acting as a confidant and therapist to a mother weeping over a fractured marriage, or the 12-year-old meticulously reading the room to anticipate and diffuse a father's explosive temper. This child becomes an absolute expert in emotional attunement, developing an almost supernatural empathy. But this empathy is not born of warmth, it is born of threat detection. Under the lens of attachment theory, this emotionally parentified child often develops what is known as a dismissive-avoidant or fearful-avoidant attachment style. Because their earliest experiences taught them that depending on others is either dangerous or deeply disappointing, they internalize a core, unshakable belief of hyper-independence. They learn to compartmentalize their own emotional needs so deeply that by the time they reach adulthood, they might not even know what those needs are. They move through the world believing that they must always be the strong one, the listener, the fixer, while silently suffering from a profound, echoing sense of isolation. When these children finally step into adulthood, the psychological bill for their lost childhood inevitably comes due. They often present to the world as incredibly capable, highly successful, and deeply reliable individuals. They are the pillars of their friend groups, the ones who organize every event, and the employees who never drop the ball. Yet, beneath this highly functional exterior, they are frequently plagued by an exhaustingly loud inner critic and a pervasive, quiet sense of emptiness. The concept of play, of engaging in an activity simply for the joy of it without an underlying purpose or tangible outcome, feels entirely foreign and sometimes even panic-inducing. Because their nervous systems were wired in the crucible of chronic stress, they operate almost exclusively in a state of sympathetic arousal. Their fight or flight response has morphed into a constant, low-grade hum of anxiety. To rest feels like a dereliction of duty, a dangerous dropping of the guard that historically kept them and their families afloat. The therapeutic journey for the adult who grew up too fast is therefore rarely about acquiring new productivity skills or learning how to manage time better. Rather, it is a profound and delicate process of unlearning. It requires the terrifying, vulnerable work of dismantling the heavy armor of hyper-independence and slowly testing the waters to see if it is finally safe to take off the mantle of the perpetual caretaker. It is about the difficult process of grieving the carefree childhood that was stolen by necessity, allowing oneself to feel the anger and the sorrow that were previously suppressed for the sake of survival. Ultimately, healing means extending a profound retrospective compassion to the small child who had to carry the crushing weight of an adult world and teaching your nervous system how to inhabit the parasympathetic state of true rest. If this deeply resonates with the way you move through your own life, perhaps the bravest and most radical thing you can do today is to simply let yourself be a little less capable, to reach out and ask someone else for help, and to softly whisper to that exhausted inner child that the emergency is finally over, and they are allowed to put down the weight of the world. If you found a piece of your own story in this psychological exploration, consider subscribing to the channel as we continue to unpack the profound complexities and the quiet, hidden struggles of the human mind together.